Hello my friends, and welcome to this next video in this series where we shall be looking at this keyword and constructors in JavaScript. In previous video, we have already seen how to manipulate objects. We saw how to update the properties that exist inside of an object and how to set new properties for that object. And the reason we're able to do this is because JavaScript objects are mutable. That means we can change the properties and functions that stays inside of that object. And that is unlike some other data types, such as string. So if we have string right here, so if I say const name1 is equals Dominic, and on the second line, I try to reassign another value to this name1 variable. This name1 is a string, right? And I try to reassign another value to it. I'm going to get an error. So if I say name1 is equals Alex and try to log name1 to the console. So I'm going to say console.log name1 and save. You see that right here, I get a type error that says attempted to assign to read only property. That means once we create a string, like we did on line 1, we're not allowed to reassign another value to that same string, just like we did on line 3. If we do that, we're going to receive this error. So it is important to note that we're able to change the properties and functions that exist inside of an object, unlike strings. Now I'm going to delete all of this and create an object and call it human1 object. Inside of this human1 object, I'm going to have a names property, and I'm going to give it Dominic, comma, and then I'm going to give a bio function, that is a function to talk about this particular human1 object. And I'm just going to log something to the console. So I'm going to say console.log, and then I'm going to use template literal. So why do I want to log to the console? Well, I just want this bio function to log something like, hello there, my name is Dominic Ebere. So how am I going to do that? I will say, hello there, my name is, so I'm going to click on enter right here in order for us to see everything at once. So I'm going to say, my name is, and then I introduce this like this, and I'm going to say this dot names. So this is what we have, okay? And we can access this bio function. Outside of this human1 object, I can say human1 dot bio, and as soon as I save, I get this thing that says, hello there, my name is Dominic Ebere, printed on the console. Very cool. Now, the thing about this keyword is that whenever we have a this keyword used inside of a function, just like we have bio here, that exists inside of an object, for example, the human1 object, it means that this keyword is referring to this human1 object where the function bio exists. I'll say that again. Whenever we have a this keyword existing inside of a function that is found inside of an object, it means that the this keyword is referring to the object where it is found. So this right here is as good as saying human1 object, and that's what we actually talked about in the last video. So if I save, you can see that we're still having hello there, my name is Dominic Ebere. Another important thing to note is that this keyword can have some other meaning depending on where it is found or how it is used. But what I wanted to know for now is that whenever we have this keyword inside of a function that exists inside of an object, it is just referring to the object itself. Okay, great. So now let me first of all take this call away from here, and then I'm going to create another human object. I have currently this human1 object, and then I want to create another human object. So I'm going to say const human2 is equals an object like this. And actually, I want this human2 object to have exactly the same thing as this human1 object. After all, they're all humans, right? So I want it to have this names property and this bio function. So what I'm going to do is copy everything from the names down to this bio function right here. Ctrl C on your keyboard, and then I'm going to come right here and paste it in. All right. So right now, this human2 object is also having the same thing as the human1 object, but then I'm creating for another human, right? So let me say I'm creating for Alex. So I'm going to say Alex Joy, like this. And then it's going to say, hello there, my name is, and of course, this right here is referring to this human2 object, right? So it's going to say, hello there, my name is Alex Joy, all right? So if I come down here and say human2.bio and save, now on the console we're having, hello there, my name is Alex Joy. And of course, if we have human1.bio, we're going to get what we had initially. So now we're having, hello there, my name is Dominic Ebere. Hello there, my name is Alex Joy. Now imagine that I want to create another human object, let's say for Blessing Matthew. So what do? I can come down right here and say const human3 is equals an object like this, all right? And again, I'm going to copy all of this and paste it right here inside of the human3 object. So now we have everything as usual, but then I'm going to change the Alex Joy to Blessing Matthew. And if I come right here and say human3.bio and save, now you can see we're also having, hello there, my name is Blessing Matthew, printed on the console along with these other ones right here. Now imagine that I want to create more human objects. So I have to say something like const human4 and have all of this inside of it and change the name, have human5 and repeat the same thing, have human6 and so on up to human 1000 and counting. You see that would be very, very boring and is going against a principle in coding that says dry. And dry means don't repeat yourself. So you can see, if you look closely, if you look at the human1 object and the human2 object and the human3 object, they're all doing the same thing, just that the names property right here is changing. So this is not a good way to do it because we are all repeating ourselves. So what I'm going to do is to take all of this away and show you a better way to do it. And I'm going to take all this one too out. So what I can do right now is to create a function. So I'm going to say function, and I'm going to give this function the name of create human, like this, parenthesis, and then curly braces, like so. And now I'm going to create an object inside of this function. Remember, we can have objects or arrays or strings or numbers and other things inside of a function. All right. So I'm going to create an object and I'm going to call it human equals an object. And then I want to return this object. So I'm going to say return human. Remember also that functions can return just about anything. In this case, I want this create human function to return the human object. So what I'm going to do now is to call this create human function, and I want to log it to the console because I want to see this human on the console. So I'm going to say console.log this. So as soon as I save this, you see that we'll get an empty object right here on the console. And the reason is because at the moment, the human object is empty, and then we're returning the human object right instead of the function. So let me save, and you can see we're having an empty object. So now let's give this create human function a parameter of my names like this, and we're going to provide a property for this human object called names, and then we're going to set the value to become my names. All right. So that means if we call this function, just as we're doing on line 9, and provide an argument right here, let's say I provide the argument of Dominic, it means that Dominic is stored inside of my names. And of course, that same Dominic now becomes the value of this names property. So if we save now, you're going to see that we'll have names, Dominic, inside of this object. So let me do that right away. Let me save my file. So now you see that we're having names, Dominic. Of course, this is one way of having property instead of an object. If I don't want to do it this way, I just want to have an empty object like this. All right, and then I can say human.names will now be equals my names. This is another way to do it, and in fact I'm going to do it this way. All right, so that names right here is setting a new property of names for this human object, and the value is going to be my names, any value that will pass when calling this function. In this case, Dominic. So Dominic is now my names, and it gets stored inside of the human object. So if I still save, we're still going to get the same thing, names as Dominic. Now let me also set a function for this human object. So I'm going to say human.bio. It's going to be a function like this. Come down. And then what do I want this function to do? I just want it to log something onto the console. So I'm going to say console.log. And what is it going to log? I'm going to use a template literal and say, hello, my name is dollars. And of course, this curly braces, and then I'm going to say this dot names like this. So if we call the bio function, it's going to log this thing onto the console. So what I'm going to do now is, let me delete this console.log statement, and then I'm going to create a variable const person1 is equals create human, and then I'm going to say Dominic. So I'm always putting this on the next line so that we can see everything at once. So right now I'm having const person1 is equals create human Dominic. So I'm calling the function right here and passing the value or argument of Dominic to it. And so that Dominic becomes my names, and my names get stored right here as the value of the names property of this human object. And that means that we can now say person1.bio like this. And what's the value of this person1? Remember, person1 has the value of create human Dominic, and create human Dominic is a function that we're calling, and it is supposed to return an object. So it means that this person1 is holding an object. All right. So we're now saying that object.bio. All right. So we're calling the bio function. So as soon as I save, you can see on the console we're having hello, my name is Dominic. Let me also bring this on the next line. I think I have some extensions on my VS Code that is helping me to straighten out my code, but never mind. As long as you can see this, that's the most important thing, and you're coding along with me. All right. So now let me say I want to create another variable of person2, and that person2 is now going to be create human. And then I'm going to pass another argument. Let me say Alex Blessing. Let me put this on the next line so we can see. So we have person2 right here, and the value or the argument we're passing to this function of create human is Alex Blessing. So I can now say person2.bio, and we're going to have hello, my name is Alex Blessing when I save this file. So you can see hello, my name is Alex Blessing. So this is a beautiful way to do it. We just create a function, and inside of this function we create an object right here, and inside of this object we create new properties. The first one was names, so we create the names property. And what's the value? The value of this name will be whatever will pass as the argument when calling this function, for example Dominic and Alex Blessing. So, and we also have a bio function for this human object, and the function is just going to log hello, my name is whatever name that exists here. It's important to know that this is representing the object, the human object that we have right here. And that is because we're saying human.bio, already we're having this human.bio, and we're having a function right here. So this is inside of this bio function, instead of this function, and the function is for this human. So definitely this right here is representing the human object. All right. So this is a beautiful way to do it. And now you can create variables and call the function, store the value of calling the function inside of this variable, and then we can now use this variable to call the function. And we can also say person1.names or person2.names like this. So when I save, there is nothing logged to the console. That's because we need to wrap this up instead of a console.log statement. So I'm going to take this away and say console.log, and then paste this, and the same thing right here, console.log, and paste this. So when I save, now we're getting Dominic and Alex Blessing. So this is how it works. But this way can actually be cumbersome, that is, it can be stressful, because right here we're creating a function, and then instead of the function, we're creating an object, and then we're setting the properties on that object. We set the names property, and we set a function on that object, and then we're returning that object. So whenever we call this function, this object will be returned, and so we can store that value, that object returned, inside of a variable. For example, in the person1 variable, we stored this right here, and then we can now use the person1 variable to access the properties or functions that exist right there. Okay, so this can be very cumbersome. A more elegant way to do it is through what we call constructors. So what I'm going to do is actually take all of this away, and then I'm going to create a constructor. And what is a constructor? A constructor is just like a blueprint for an object. Remember, in few videos ago, I talked about a class and how class can serve as a template for object creation. The way class works is that it uses constructors too. In JavaScript, we can just directly write a constructor or use a constructor via what is called an object constructor function. In JavaScript, even without directly declaring a class, we can just declare a constructor, and the constructor is going to act as the blueprint for which object can be created. So what do I mean? I can come right here and say function, and then I'm going to name this function human. This H is in capital letters. The convention is that whenever you're creating a constructor, the first letter should be a capital letter. And I'm just going to open the parenthesis and then curly braces. So how do I start to work inside of this human constructor? Now I can have the properties that I want to exist inside of this human constructor. First of all, this human constructor is going to have some parameters. Remember, this is a function, but then because we also named this human starting with the capital letter H, it is seen as a constructor, and we can provide parameters. So if, for example, I want to provide my names parameter like so, it means that when we actually use this constructor to build objects, we're going to pass a value or an argument for this my names parameter. So right inside of this function, I want to do something like this dot names is equals my names. Remember, I said that this human is a constructor. We are having a constructor right here through what is called an object constructor function. So this function is an object constructor function, which means we're using the function to have a constructor, and objects are going to be made from this human constructor. So whatever object that is going to be made from this human constructor is going to have a property of names on it. And what is going to be the value for that names? I want it to be my names parameter right here. So when we actually call this human function, so we say human, we're going to pass it a name. So I can say something like Dominic Ebere, like so. To do it more properly, I'm going to say new human, and I can store this inside of a variable. So I can say const person1 is equals new human Dominic Ebere. This person1 right here is holding the value of new human, and what that means is that we're creating an object right here, okay? And of course, we are creating the object using this constructor that we have here. So it means that already this person1 has a property of names on it, because the human constructor that we have right here is having a property of names whose value is Dominic Ebere. And we can also create another person. So I can say const person2 is equals new human, and then I provide the name. So let's say Alex. Now if you look close, you can see we're using a keyword called new. So all that is doing is help us to create new object each time we use it right there. Each of these objects, the person1 object and the person2 object that we're having right here, is going to be having their own individual names. That means for this person1, the names property existing on this person1 is Dominic Ebere, and the names property existing on person2 is Alex. And this is much more shorter and it is better. So we don't have to declare an object and assign properties and functions to that object and return the object just like we did with the previous example. So I'm going to save. So what I can do now is to say person1 dot names, and I want to log it to the console. Okay, so let me actually take this out and say console.log person1.names. And as soon as I do that, I have Dominic Ebere logged onto the console. So what's happening here? We'll talk about it soon. And let me come on the second line. I'm going to say console.log person2.names. And as soon as I save, you see we're having Alex printed on the console as well. So what is happening? When we created this human constructor right here, this right here is referring to the object that I created from this human constructor. So this person1 variable is holding a new object right here that we created using the human constructor. So it means that this is referring to this person1, and this is also referring to this person2. So each of the objects that we create from this human constructor is made reference to using this keyword right here. Okay, so anything we want to set on the person1 object, we can do so directly, and we are sure that it is just for the person1 object and not person2 or any other object created using this human constructor right here. So we can have person1, person2, person3, person4, and so on and so forth, having their own names and even some other properties that we want them to have. This human constructor can take other parameters. So assuming I want to provide an eye color parameter, and then I'm going to come down here and say this dot eyes is equals eye color, like this. So now I'm also having eyes as a property that exists for this human constructor. Okay, so it means that any object created using this human object, talking about the person1 and person2 object, it means that they will all have the eyes property and of course the names property on them. And now that we've assigned another parameter of eye color, it means that after this one, after the name, because this name right here we're providing is for this my names parameter, I'm going to provide an argument here for the eye color. So I can say blue, and this one I can say red, assuming that's the eye color for Alex. Okay, so I can say person1.eye color, or eyes actually, because eyes is a property that exists on the human constructor, right? So I'm going to say eyes, and when I save, you see we're having blue and red, because blue is the eye color for this person1 and red is the eye color for this person2. So it is important to note that this is referring to this object, the person1 object and the person2 object, and indeed any object that is going to be created using this human constructor right here. We cannot say human.names or human.eyes. This is not just going to work. So you can see we're having undefined as soon as I save this. So we're supposed to use this rather than human right there. And that's because this will represent any object created from the human constructor function. But using human right there will not represent any object created from the constructor function. So let me change it back to this. Okay, so we're having this.names equals my names, this.eyes equals eye color. And if you notice, I'm using different names in order to make things more clearer for you. This one we're having here, the this.names, the names here and the eyes here are the properties that exist on this human constructor. Okay, and the my names right here and the eye color are these ones that will pass right here. So anything will pass right here, it will now be assigned as the value of the names and the eyes. So we can even give more parameters right here, and of course when calling the function we provide the argument, and then they're going to get assigned to whatever property that we want them to get assigned to inside of the human constructor. So that is one powerful use of this keyword. And of course we can even have a function for this human. So I can say something like this.bio is equals function, like so, and I want this function to console.log names and the eyes property to the console. All right, so I'm going to say console.log, and I'm going to use template literal. I'm going to say, hello, my name is, and then I'm going to use the dollar symbol and this right here to say this dot names, and I'm going to put a full stop. My eye color is, and I'm going to put dollar, and this one again, the curly braces, I'm going to say this dot eyes. So that's what this bio function is going to do. It's going to console.log all of this. So now we create this person1 right here is a variable, all right, but then it's containing this object right here. We created an object right here, and because we created this person1 object using the human constructor right here, it's going to have the names property, the eyes property, and the bio function in it. And so we can say person1 dot bio, and we can also say person2 dot bio like this, and I'm going to save. We're having the direct function on it, and the reason is because we did not put parentheses after calling this bio. So I'm going to do just that, and right here do just that. Okay, so when I save it now, you see we're having, hello, my name is Dominic Ibere, my eye color is blue. Hello, my name is Alex, my eye color is red. Okay, so that's how the constructor works in JavaScript. We create a constructor like this, and then we can use this constructor to build out objects such as this person1 object and this person2 object. All right, and whatever parameter we pass to the human constructor function, we're also going to pass an argument or pass arguments for those parameters right there. All right, so that's how the constructor function works. And of course, I'm going to put this on this new line. I think my VS Code is always putting it on the full length because of some of the extensions that I have installed inside of my VS Code, but then I hope we can all see it clearly like this. Now I'm going to save this file, and of course we're still going to have the same thing. So that is it about constructors in JavaScript, and this is how we can build out objects such as the person1 and person2 objects out of constructors like this, and you can see it is actually more efficient. And just as we saw, we can only use this right here. Okay, we cannot use human, for example, human.names or human.eyes. No, we're only going to use this, and this is referring to the object that we created here. So let me take this code out, and what I'm going to do right now is come down here and create another object. I'm going to say person and just say new human. Remember to use the new keyword, because whenever we are building out objects or creating objects out of a constructor, we use the new keyword. Okay, and I'm going to provide for the my names parameter, I'm going to provide an argument of Ibere, comma, and for the eye color parameter, I'm going to provide the value of blue. And let me put this on this online so we can see everything all at once. Now I've created this person object out of this human constructor, and what I want to do is say person dot, let's say I want to change the value of this Ibere, so I no longer want it to be Ibere, I want it to be something else. So I can say person dot names, because remember this person has access to the names property right here. So I'm going to say person dot names is now equals Dominic like this. Okay, so if I'm to log person.names, so I'm going to say console.log person.names and save. Then you can see we have Dominic on the console. That is because I have changed the value right here. If I didn't have this right here, I'm going to have Ibere printed on the console instead. We can also create a new property on this person object. So let me take this one away. At the moment, we're having const person equals new human, Ibere, and blue. Now, I want to have person dot height. Let's say I want to set my height to be equals 1.92, just like this. Okay. This height does not exist inside of this human constructor, right? So it means that we're only setting this height on the object created from the human constructor. Okay. So after setting the height, we can come here and say person.height. Okay, so we want to access the person.height, and in fact, I'm going to print it to the console. So I'm going to say console.log person.height, and as soon as I save, you see that we're getting 1.92 printed on the console. So it means that this person is having a height property on it. Okay, but that's because we set this height property only for this person object. It doesn't exist for this human object. So that means if we go ahead to create another object, so let me say const person2 is equals, let me say enter, new human. I'm going to say Alex, and then I'm going to say red for the eye color. All right. So if I say person2 dot height and try to print it to the console, so let me wrap it up in a console.log statement. So I'm going to say console.log and person2.height. You see, we're getting undefined for this person2 right here because height does not exist on this person2. Why is that so? Because we've not set any height property for this person2 object. Neither is the human constructor function right here having a height property on it. So we're going to get undefined. All right. So it means that we can update the properties that exist on an object, and we can also set new property for that object. So, but what if we want to have this height property on our human constructor function, that is this constructor right here? What if we want to have a height property on it? We can just simply come here and say this.height is equals to, and of course we'll have to take the height from here, from the parameter, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to come here and provide height. Let me say heights. So I'm going to say this dot height. So now you can see that I'm setting a height property. It's going to be equals height like this. So this height right here is whatever thing gets passed to this function. So it means that when we are calling the human constructor right here, we also have to pass a height property to it, and we can say 1 for the height, and this one maybe we can say 1.45 or 1.54 for the height. All right. So now if I save this, now we're having 1.54 for this person2 object because we've provided 1.54 right here. But of course this one is still going to have 1.92 even though we passed 1 as a value, because right here we updated the height to be 1.92. Now is now an updation because height is now existing for this human object. Initially, when height was not here, when the height property was not existing, it meant that this line we were setting a height property and giving it a value of 1.92. But now that height exists on the human constructor, it means that this one is now updating the value of that height property. And one last thing that I want to show us before we finish off with this video is that before we had this height, let me take this one out, okay, and take this one out, and let me also take this one out and take this one out. Okay, so now we're back to setting a height property for this object, for the person object. Let me take all of this out. Can we actually say human dot height is equals, let's say 1.56? Is this allowed? Are we going to be able to set a height property for this human constructor? No, we're not going to be able to do it this way. This will go wrong. Okay, this will not be able to give us a height property. So even if I create an object, let's say const pers, let me just say pers for person is equals human, and I provide the names. Let me say Dom for short, and I'm going to say red for the eye color. All right, let me make this proper. So if I say pers.height, or try to log it to the console.log pers.height. Now we're having a type error of undefined. We are saying that undefined is not an object, and that is because we are trying to access a property of height on this pers object, and it doesn't exist for this human, right? If we check the human, there is nothing like height, so we're having type error right here. So doing this on line 10 does not actually set a height property inside of this human constructor function. All right, this is not the right way to do it. If we wanted to set a height property, we'll have to come right here and say this dot height, okay, is equal to whatever, maybe the parameter we pass from here, for example, my height, okay, and then we're going to give my height like this. And of course, when we're now calling this human function, we can now say 1 or 2 or whatever your height is right there. Okay, so now if I save this, and we're having an error right here, and that's because we created this human without the new keyword. So remember to always do that. So when I save, now you can see we're having one right here. All right. So that's how to create a constructor using the object constructor function. And then we can build objects such as this person right here using the new keyword and then that constructor function, and then providing the argument that are necessary. Okay. And this right here used instead of this constructor function is referring to the objects created right here using the human constructor function. So it is just as good as saying pers.height, pers.names, pers.eyes, pers.bio, and so on and so forth. And that goes for each of the objects we're going to be creating using new human, that is using the constructor function. All right. And that is just it, my friends. But before I let you go, I just want to show you that there is something looking like a 3 dots under this human constructor function. And when you hover around it, you see that VS Code is saying that this constructor function may be converted to a class declaration. So, and that is true, we can actually convert this to a class and use it almost in a similar way as we have used right here. But that's what we're going to be saying in the next video, where we're going to be talking about class, and we're going to see how the constructor thing works with class. See you in the next video, my friends. Please, my friends, like my videos and subscribe to my channel. It will go a long way in helping me to create videos like this.